Hello, Exiles. This is Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and I'm doing a follow up from my video on Sunday where we talked about an exploit. I called it a bug. I should have called it an exploit. A lot of people called me out on that. I agree 100%. That allowed you to duplicate items, specifically weapons, and in this case, specifically, it was a lot of high tier influenced weapons using the split recipe or using split items, and it would basically remove the split tag. It's been fixed now, but there's some interesting information that's come to light that I wanted to talk about. So I was looking through a thread here on Reddit, and I'll just pull that up, and it is how bad was the MP exploit compared to the vendor recipe. I counted items so you don't have to. I'm okay with using MP's name now because it's ubiquitous at this point, and he's kind of owned up to it and accepted it, and I think it's okay to go ahead and say that. And obviously don't harass anybody and don't do anything like that. He's paying for what he did and acknowledges it, and yeah, absolutely water under the bridge. But there are some things I wanted to talk about here in terms of consistent enforcement of the rules and why we're not getting bans on these recent exploits. And actually, Bex was able to shed a little light. She didn't say it directly, but so according to Bex, 20 players were banned for generating 711,764 items. That would be over the course, in the case of MP's group, of the 3 times they tested it. So that's quite a lot, obviously. With loot filters, it's hard to say, but in this follow-up spread where it says players who used split exploit still not banned, and this first thread was by Feeding for Harambe, by the way, and there's some good information in here, and it's interesting, and I'll probably touch on a little bit of the data. The second one is from Beverus, and Bex responded saying, "Unfortunately, our logging didn't happen to include details of what items were vendored, so we were unable to identify which users did this. We couldn't ban these users even if we did want to, and there's a lot of internal debate over this, as we do need better clarity on over what counts as an exploit and what counts as intelligent abuse of game mechanics," which is something I've been saying. Absolutely, we do need better clarity on that. That is the most important thing in my opinion, but we have since fixed up the blind spot in our logging. This means basically they couldn't see everything. However, there are screenshots and there's trade API stuff that gives the names of the accounts. And I know you can obscure this by trading, and also a lot of innocent people might get caught up in the crossfire. People who might have bought these items not knowing about the exploit, which is what I was trying to help avoid when I was doing my video. So there might be some kind of messiness in that, but she follows up with, in regards to feedback in this thread about the exploit bans from earlier this league, I'm seeing rumors about how much it was supposedly used and whether the bans were justified based on that. So I asked the teams if we could share some of the information that led to the decision behind these bans, one key detail, and then they talk about how many items were generated. Now, the rest of this thread talks about how much the worth of these 711,764 items were based on previous currency drop tables, and kind of just generally based on how often people see like pure exalt drops. Of course, there was going to be like divination cards and other valuable drops. We saw a lot of uniques, that kind of thing. Certainly there would be some tier 1 uniques. However, there, if we look through here, using this data, the total number of pure exalt would be around 13 exalts, so 0.65 exalts per player. It would have taken 123 times as many items to get one mirror on average, so they would have had to abuse this for weeks to get a mirror. And people were saying the beast exploit, or the beast splitting exploit, people were saying people made somewhere in the realm of 50 mirrors. Now, this had been running since the beginning of the league, and it was something I was not aware of. So, yeah, it's very possible that in a couple of weeks, people could have made 50 mirrors from this. And people were using it for maps as well, getting around that. So the average value of the recipe, as we saw them going from in between one exalt to up to like 25 or 50 exalts, depending on the rolls on them. And I believe the original base was the one that was going for the higher amount. So we can see this was very profitable. And so using the recipe twice on average was already making more income than the person with the Empyrean ban. And I think there's a lot more things to consider just about the monetary impact. There were some good points made in the lower parts, including by Sir Gog, who I believe actually comments and watches the channel. So if you're watching this, hi Sir Gog. But yeah, there were some good points made about people not being able to use certain high influence farming strategies to make currency anymore for the rest of the league, because the economy is absolutely flooded with these high item level influenced bases. So those people are kind of SOL, you know? So shit out of luck for those who are uninformed on that. So there's a lot to think about, and I'm thinking there might be a couple of different things to consider on top of this. Like maybe they're weighting less the economic impact and more the server impact. Dropping all of those items on once were basically nearly causing crashes. If you watch the replays of the streams, you could see that they were basically going down to like 5 FPS and almost crashing, and in some cases crashing. It's possible that the real bannable incident was the server load and less the economy, and that it was kind of a scapegoat situation. So I'm thinking that may be the point. And the person talks about how they weren't really trying to make a point. They just wanted to talk about, you know, how many items would drop overall during the course of that many, or how many good items would drop over the course of that many items dropping. But yeah, the total economic impact of the split abuse is probably around 5,000 plus times as large, but somehow doesn't warrant a ban. This makes me, my final thoughts on this, I think there's a lot of things going on here. I think like the trade API, I think maybe people give GGG too much credit for how much they can track. They're a small company. There's a lot of people playing this game, and I actually think they don't get every bit of information like they kind of say they do, or like people think they might. I think there's still a lot of obscured information or difficult to find information, and that may be because of the trade API or some other factors. But I really think they don't have access to as much information on what people are doing as people might think. Kind of like the NSA. They don't know everything you've done individually. They would have to sort through all of the different data to figure out, you know, all the stuff about you, or would have to be looking for you specifically. And because there were people exploiting on stream in one case, they were very easy to find. Whereas there were people who were not streaming and just trading and kind of muddying their laundering. You could almost say it was like laundering. They were laundering it through uninformed players who were buying up these items and making them impossible to track. So that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, just let me know in the comment section below what you think what it is. But yeah, that's my thoughts. This has been Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and I will see you next time. Bye.